What happens when one of Hollywood's most admired and kind-hearted stars finally reaches his breaking point on live television? What happened that day on The View was nothing short of explosive. It all began when Joy Behar stepped over a line that should never have been crossed. The clash that followed had everyone talking. By the time this story ends, you'll understand exactly why Keanu Reeves, the man known for his calm nature and humble heart, completely lost it in front of millions of viewers. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments, because things are about to get intense. The day started like any regular episode of The View. The familiar theme music played, the crowd clapped and cheered, and the co-hosts took their usual spots around that iconic round table. Joy Behar, as always, seemed ready with her quick wit and sharp remarks, but this time, she had no idea that her guest, Keanu Reeves, was not going to be another celebrity who smiled politely and took her comments in stride. Keanu walked onto the set with his usual calm, wearing a simple black suit and that soft smile that's made him a global favorite. The audience stood to applaud, thrilled just to see him. He waved modestly, then sat down with the quiet confidence of a man who has done this 1,000 times before. "Welcome to The View, Keanu," Whoopi Goldberg greeted warmly once the noise died down. "We're really happy to have you here." "Thank you," Keanu said with his gentle, genuine tone. "It's a pleasure to be here with all of you." The start of the interview went smoothly. They talked about his new movie project, his love for motorcycles, and the small acts of kindness that have made him a legend both on and off the screen. Every answer he gave felt sincere and thoughtful. He wasn't trying to show off or sell himself, just being honest and kind the way he always is. But Joy Behar's quietness during those first few minutes was unusual. Anyone who knew her knew what that meant. She was waiting for her moment to strike. With a knowing smirk, she tapped her pen against her notepad, biding her time until she could stir things up. "You know, Keanu," Joy suddenly cut in, interrupting a story he was telling about mentoring young actors. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you." The mood in the studio changed instantly. The other hosts looked at each other, uneasy. Keanu turned to her calmly, his focus now completely on her. "Of course," he said politely. "What would you like to know?" Joy leaned forward, that sly smile spreading across her face. "Well," she began, "you've built this whole reputation as this nice guy, the humble, generous actor who gives away money and helps random people. But tell me, is any of that actually real? Or is it just one big PR act? Maybe the most well-planned image makeover in Hollywood history?" The studio went completely silent. Even the audience stopped breathing for a moment. This wasn't the kind of question people usually asked on The View, especially not to someone as universally loved as Keanu Reeves. Keanu's expression didn't change much, but those who knew him well would have noticed the slight tightening in his jaw, the small change in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "Can you explain what you mean?" Joy didn't back off. In fact, she looked even more excited now. "Come on, Keanu," she said. "You expect us to believe that a Hollywood millionaire is really that selfless? That you don't have a PR team making sure every act of kindness gets photographed and posted online? That this whole humble nice guy image isn't just another performance?" The other co-hosts shifted in their chairs. Whoopi cleared her throat, clearly uncomfortable, probably wanting to move on. But Joy wasn't finished. "I mean seriously," Joy continued, her tone sharpening. "Normal people don't have cameras following them when they help someone. Normal people's good deeds don't go viral overnight, so forgive me if I'm not ready to buy into the whole St. Keanu story." Keanu sat still for a moment, taking in her words. When he finally spoke, his voice remained calm, but it carried a heavier tone now, something solid and serious. "Joy," he said quietly, "I understand that your job is to question things, but I think what you're doing now goes beyond skepticism. It's cruel. Cruel." Joy laughed out loud, waving her hand. "Oh, come on. I'm just asking questions that any real journalist would ask. You want to talk about cruel? Cruel is manipulating people's feelings for fame. Cruel is pretending to be something you're not, just to sell tickets or boost your career." That's when something in Keanu's expression changed. The man who had faced so much loss, who had lived through heartbreak, who had always shown grace even in pain, was finally reaching his limit. "You want to talk about manipulation?" Keanu asked, his voice still calm but heavier now, each word landing with weight. "Let's talk about manipulation then." The words cut through the air like a challenge. Keanu Reeves, who had spent his entire career avoiding conflict and negativity, now stared directly at Joy Behar with an intensity that made the studio audience lean forward. "You sit here at this table every day?" Keanu said, his voice rising slightly. "And you take people who try to do something good, who share their stories, and you twist their words for entertainment. You turn sincerity into sarcasm, because that's what gets people to watch, isn't it?" Joy. For the first time, Joy's smile faltered, but she quickly straightened up. "I'm a journalist, Keanu," she said sharply. "I ask tough questions. If you can't handle that, maybe interviews aren't for you. Hard questions." Keanu leaned in, his calm starting to crack. "If you really want to ask hard questions, then ask about the work. Ask about the craft. Ask about what stories mean to us as artists. But don't you dare question whether my pain is real. Don't you dare suggest that the people I've lost, the things I've gone through, are just some kind of performance." The room fell silent again, no one moved. The audience was glued to every word. Kinu's tone wasn't angry in the traditional sense. It was raw, honest, and heartbreakingly human. "You have no idea what people go through," he said. "You don't get to decide which parts of their kindness are genuine. You don't get to mock someone's grief just because it doesn't fit your version of reality." Joy opened her mouth, but nothing came out. For once, she looked unsure of what to say. Whoopi glanced nervously at the producers, but no one wanted to interrupt. It was one of those rare TV moments where time seemed to stop. Kinu took a slow breath, then continued, his voice softer now but no less powerful. "I've lost people I love. I've seen pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. If helping others, if being kind is my way of keeping their memory alive, then that's not for publicity, that's for peace. And if you can't understand that, Joy, that's on you." The audience broke into applause, hesitant at first, then growing louder and louder until it filled the entire studio. Joy sat frozen, her usual confidence gone. Kinu gave a small nod, not smug, not victorious, just calm, again collected, as if he had finally said what needed to be said. "Now," he said, looking toward Whoopi, "can we talk about the movie?" The tension eased a little, but everyone knew they had just witnessed something unforgettable. A moment of raw truth on live TV, a rare glimpse of the real Keanu Reeves. Not the internet legend or the Hollywood star, but the man who had spent a lifetime choosing kindness in a world that often mistakes it for weakness. Backstage later, crew members whispered about what had just happened. Some said Joy left the set early, upset by the backlash already brewing online. Others said Keanu stayed behind to thank the production team, the same way he always does. But one thing was certain, that day changed how people saw both of them. The clip went viral within hours. Millions of people shared it, calling it one of the most powerful moments in talk show history. Comment sections filled with support for Keanu, people praising him for standing up for himself, for his honesty, for refusing to let cynicism win. And maybe that's the real lesson here. No matter how famous you are, no matter how much you've achieved, there will always be people who doubt your goodness. But sometimes the best response isn't anger, it's truth spoken with quiet strength. Keanu didn't lose his temper that day. He found it, and in doing so, he reminded the world why he's one of the few stars left in Hollywood who still feels real. The mention of his personal pain sent a visible shock across the panel. Even Joy looked caught off guard for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure, her defensive attitude snapping back into place. "Now you're just being dramatic," Joy replied sharply. "I never brought up your personal losses. I'm talking about your public image, your reputation. There's a difference." "No, Joy, there isn't." Keanu's tone was louder now, something none of them had ever heard before. "You can't separate the two when you attack someone's character. When you say someone's kindness is fake, when you claim their generosity is just for show, you're attacking everything they stand for. You're telling the world that real goodness doesn't exist, that every kind act must have some hidden motive." Sonny Hostin tried to interrupt. "Maybe we should." "No," Keanu said firmly, his gaze locked on Joy's face. "Let her finish. She obviously has more to say about my so-called manipulation. Go ahead, Joy. Tell everyone how helping a stranded driver change a tire is just a PR stunt. Tell us how donating my Matrix salary to the crew was simply good business. Explain how quietly paying for cancer treatments for friends is somehow a marketing move." Joy's face was turning red now, her voice rising in pitch. "You see? This is exactly what I'm talking about! You've got a whole list ready. You know exactly which good deeds to mention when someone questions you. That's not real kindness, that's damage control." The audience began to murmur. Some looked visibly uncomfortable as Joy kept pushing. But Keanu wasn't backing down. "You want to know what damage control really looks like, Joy?" Keanu stood up suddenly, surprising everyone. "Damage control is what someone like you does when they're called out for being cruel on national television. Instead of apologizing or showing a shred of empathy, you double down and hit harder. That's damage control." "I'm not being cruel," Joy argued, though her voice had lost much of its earlier strength. "I'm just being honest." "Honest?" Keanu's laugh was sharp and bitter, a sound none of them had ever heard from him before. "You want honesty? Here's honesty. You're not a journalist, Joy. Real journalists look for truth. You look for drama. You don't care about facts, you care about reactions. You don't want to inform anyone, you want to provoke them. Because angry viewers keep watching, and those views make you money." Whoopi tried to step in again. "Keanu, maybe we can." "No, Whoopi. With all due respect, I'm not done." He turned back to Joy, who now looked uneasy, shifting in her seat. "You want to question my motives? Fine, let's question yours. How much of your salary depends on stirring up trouble? How much of your career is built on tearing down people who can't fight back? And when someone finally stands up to you, when someone calls you out for what you really are, you hide behind the word journalist, like it gives you permission to be heartless." Joy's face was bright red now. She gripped her pen so tightly her knuckles went white. "How dare you lecture me about journalism? You're an actor. You pretend to be other people for a living, and you pretend to be a decent person for a living." Keanu shot back instantly. "At least I admit that what I do is pretend." The studio went completely silent. The cameras were still rolling, but no one moved. This wasn't the calm, soft-spoken Keanu Reeves the world knew. This was a man who had finally reached his breaking point. Joy tried to take control of the moment again. "You know what, Keanu? You're proving my point perfectly. The mask is slipping. The real you is showing, and it's not nearly as nice as you act." That's when Keanu's voice dropped to a low, almost whispering tone, but somehow it was even more powerful than shouting. "The real me, Joy, is someone who has buried more people than anyone ever should. The real me wakes up every morning and still chooses to make the world a little better instead of a little worse. The real me believes that kindness matters, that helping people matters, that treating others with respect matters. And the real you, Joy, is someone who just spent 10 minutes on national television trying to convince everyone that none of those things are real." His words hit Joy like a physical blow. For the first time in the entire exchange, she seemed truly speechless. The woman who always had a comeback, who never backed down, sat there staring at him with her mouth slightly open. But Keanu wasn't done. Years of patience, of holding back, of turning the other cheek while people took shots at him. It all came pouring out. "You know what the really tragic thing is, Joy?" he continued quietly, his voice sharp enough to cut through the silence. "You could use your platform for something good. You could inspire people. You could ask real questions that help others understand the world better. But instead, you choose to be a bully, and not just any bully. A bully with a microphone and millions of viewers." Joy finally found her voice, but it trembled slightly. "I'm not a bully. I ask tough questions. If you can't handle the heat, stop." Keanu's single word landed like a command. Joy froze mid-sentence. "Just stop. You've said enough. Actually, you said enough 5 minutes ago, but you kept going. Because that's what you do. You don't know when to stop. You don't see when you've crossed the line from journalism into cruelty, from skepticism into personal attack." Sonny tried one more time to defuse the situation. "Maybe we should cut to a commercial." "No," Keanu said again, still staring at Joy. "We're finishing this right here, right now. The people watching deserve to see how it ends. They deserve to see what happens when someone finally stands up to the playground bully." Joy's anger came back, her tone sharp again. "Playground bully? Really, I'm doing my job. I hold celebrities accountable. I ask the hard questions that people are afraid to ask." "Whose questions, Joy?" Keanu's voice grew stronger, filled with emotion. "Who exactly is demanding that you question whether kindness is real? Who's asking you to attack people who try to do good? Because I'll tell you who's not asking for that. The people who actually benefit from that kindness, the crew members who managed to send their children to college because I shared my earnings with them. The cancer patients who got their treatments because someone decided to care. The lost families who finally made it home because someone stopped to help. None of them are asking you to question whether that help was real or not. But the public, they deserve to know the truth." Joy started to speak again, but Keanu cut her off once more. "The public deserves to know the truth, not your cold, twisted version of it. People deserve real information, not your bitter commentary pretending to be journalism. And they deserve to see good things happening around them without someone instantly stepping in to say it's all fake." The other co-hosts were exchanging uneasy glances, clearly uncomfortable with how far this had gone, yet powerless to stop it. They all knew this was television history unfolding before their eyes. Joy tried once again to regain control. "You know what I think, Keanu? I think you're having this big emotional moment because deep down you know I'm right. You're angry because someone finally saw through your act, and you can't handle being exposed." That was it. That was the breaking point, the moment Keanu Reeves, who had remained calm through years of pain and loss, finally erupted. "Exposed?" His voice echoed across the studio, loud enough to make several people flinch. "You want to talk about being exposed, Joy? Let's talk about what you've revealed here today. You've shown everyone that you are so unhappy, so bitter, so incapable of believing in goodness that you have to tear down anyone who proves you wrong." Joy tried to interrupt him, but Keanu wasn't done. "No, you've had your chance to speak. You've had your time to attack, to criticize, to tear down. Now it's my turn." His voice remained strong but measured, like a storm barely contained. "You've shown yourself as someone who mistakes cynicism for intelligence, cruelty for bravery, and breaking others down for building yourself up. You've shown the world that you'd rather destroy something beautiful than admit that beauty exists." The studio was alive with tension. The audience didn't make a sound, yet their energy filled the room. Everyone could feel the weight of what they were seeing. This wasn't the calm, soft-spoken Keanu Reeves they were used to, but in a strange way, it was exactly the version of him the world needed to see. "And do you know what else you've revealed, Joy?" Keanu went on, his tone lowering to a dangerously calm level. "You've shown that you're exactly the kind of person who makes good people stop wanting to be good. You're that voice in someone's head saying, 'Don't help that stranger. People will think you're showing off.' You're the reason kind people hesitate to do kind things, because they know someone like you will question their intentions." Joy's confidence was slipping now. Her voice trembled slightly as she tried to respond, desperate to turn things around. This is funny coming from someone having a full breakdown on live television. Is this the real Keanu Reeves? Is this the calm, grounded man you pretend to be? Keanu stood up straight now, his height casting a long shadow over the table. When he spoke again, his voice had steadied, but there was power in it that seemed to fill every corner of the studio. You're absolutely right, Joy. This is the real me. This is the man who spent his whole life trying to be kind, trying to help, trying to make the world even a little bit better. This is someone who's finally hit his breaking point after facing a person determined to convince everyone that kindness is fake. This is someone who's lost everyone he's ever loved, yet still chooses to love. This is a man who's been knocked down by life over and over, and still gets back up each day trying to lift others up. And yes, this is someone who finally got angry when faced with a person whose job seems to be making sure nobody else ever gets lifted up. He paused, letting his words hang in the silence, then looked around at the other hosts before turning back to Joy, who now looked noticeably smaller in her chair. You wanted the real me, Joy. Well, here I am. I'm someone who believes the world already has too many people tearing each other apart, and what it really needs are more people lifting one another up. I'm someone who believes that when you have a platform, when people listen to you, when you have influence, you carry a responsibility to use it to do something good. And I believe that what you've done here today, what you keep doing on this show, is the exact opposite of that. The silence in the room stretched endlessly. Joy opened her mouth several times, but no sound came out. The rest of the panel sat frozen in place, uncertain of what to do next. The audience didn't move, didn't clap, didn't even whisper. Every eye in that studio was fixed on Keanu. Finally, Keanu reached for his jacket hanging over the back of his chair. I think I'm done here, he said softly but firmly. Thank you for inviting me. I hope the people watching were able to take something valuable from this talk, even if it wasn't what anyone expected. He started walking toward the edge of the stage but then paused and turned back one last time. Enjoy, he said, his tone calm now but still heavy with meaning. I honestly hope one day you find whatever it is you're searching for when you tear people down, because from where I'm standing, it doesn't seem to be making you very happy. As Keanu walked off the set, the entire studio stayed completely silent. The cameras kept rolling, capturing the image of Joy Behar sitting still at the table, unable to speak, while the man she tried to expose had instead revealed something far more uncomfortable: the truth about her own attitude toward the world. The moment lingered long after he was gone. The co-hosts avoided looking directly at one another, unsure of what to say or how to end the show. Producers behind the glass scrambled, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the silence breathe. For the viewers watching at home, it was unlike anything they'd ever seen on live television. A real confrontation that didn't feel rehearsed or staged. It wasn't just a celebrity losing his cool. It was a man standing up for something he believed in, for kindness, for truth, and for the idea that not everything good in this world deserves to be mocked. People online would soon call it one of the most powerful live TV moments in years. Some would side with Joy, saying she was just doing her job, asking tough questions. But many others saw something else. A tired man finally reaching the edge after years of trying to be good in a world that often punishes goodness. It became more than a viral clip. It became a reminder that kindness, no matter how pure, will always be tested. That when you stand up for decency, there will always be voices trying to twist it into weakness. And that sometimes even the calmest souls have limits. The clip would spread across social media in minutes. Millions of people would share it with captions like, "The most real moment on TV," and "This is why Keanu is loved." And while some debated who was right or wrong, most people just felt something they hadn't felt in a long time: sincerity. Back in the studio, Joy sat motionless, her usual quick wit gone. Maybe for the first time, she was left to think about her own words, her own approach, and the possibility that she might have gone too far. The crew members whispered quietly, unsure how to handle the silence that followed. Keanu, meanwhile, was already walking toward the exit, calm once again. The intensity that had filled him moments ago seemed to have melted away, replaced by a quiet resolve. He didn't need to win. He didn't need applause. He just needed to tell the truth. What did you think of this intense exchange? Do you think Joy Behar crossed the line, or was she simply doing her job as a talk show host? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable moments and stories just like this one. What other celebrity face-off would you want us to cover next?